Next guest loves Nick Sirianni. I guess I'm on board. They've won 8 in a row. They beat Lamar Jackson. NFC teams do not beat Lamar Jackson. Now, Justin Tucker helped him out. But I will say this. They may be the worst first quarter team that's a good team in the league, but their second quarter was great, and their fourth quarters, they give the ball to the right people. And that's what I like about Philadelphia's offense. It's what Ohio State didn't do Saturday. They got their ball, and they get their ball to the right guys. And Sirianni, maybe he's learning on the job. I've had misgivings, but it works. You do not win 8 games in a row. And they've beaten some good teams, home and away. They've beaten good teams. You don't win 8 in a row. Go look at Chicago. They got good players too, unless the coach knows what he's doing.
All right. Let's talk about this, and let's get this out of the way very, very quickly. Let's stop acting like Justin Tucker missing field goals is why the Eagles won. Like, oh my God, I already saw some comments about that, and that's just straight nonsense. Does that stuff help? Obviously. So does all of these things in the context of a football game. That's why before you even look at the outcome and understand of how it happened, you got to ask yourself, who was the better team? Who do you think was the better team? And it was undeniably the Eagles. The Eagles were able to execute way more efficiently. Their defense was better. Their offense was better. Their special teams was better. They were better on every step of the way. Which is crazy because when you look at the box score, when you actually look at the stats, you can see that the Ravens had more first downs, more total plays, more total yards, time of possession. And you can look at that and say, oh, look, they were the better team. And sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not. I still kind of wrestle with how sometimes a team can have more yards, more time of possession, right? All this type of stuff, more first downs, whatever it may be, and still prove to be the worst team. And that's why, again, I always talk about this. Football, all of sports as a whole, it is not 1 + 1 = 2. I wish it was. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. It's 1 + 1 = sometimes 1.9874332. Like it's just hard to always process. And that's why I always try to think to myself after I watch a game that I know I'm going to talk about, I think to myself, who do I think is the better team? Without looking, who do I think played better? And then I kind of dig in to be like, okay, now let me look at all this stuff. Now let me kind of start to really try to figure this stuff out. And the difference was that the Eagles made the big plays, okay? You saw those big moments. You saw the tackle on Derrick Henry, the containment of Derrick Henry, of making Lamar Jackson uncomfortable. Hurts getting a huge, a really big time throw to Dallas Goedert, which even Romo pointed out, said that throw looks easy. That is a significantly harder throw. And then picking up the third down with his legs, because you can look at Jalen Hurts' box score and you can look at his numbers and be like, oh, he was only 11 for 19, 118 yards. That's why you got to watch the game. Because there was times when if you just saw a couple highlights, you could say Lamar Jackson, right? Eyeballs popping out of his head. Oh my God. But then when you actually watch the game, you can see situationally Jalen Hurts stepping up big time. Finding A.J. Brown for a first down. I mean, he was like first down Freddy at that point, man. Every time he caught the ball, it wasn't as big and exciting and as, oh my God, a 60-yard touchdown. But it was a first down when they needed a first down. When they needed to say, hey, we can pass the ball. We can get the ball. We can move the chains. That's what Jalen Hurts did, and that's what he did with A.J., Dallas Goedert. And they used the passing game to then open up the run game. And then Saquon Barkley was able to take off and played great. The defense stepped up. I mean, it was just this balanced game. And you could see, because the game as it started off was not going exactly as planned for either team. Both teams wanted to do more. Jalen Hurts was not on fire. Saquon Barkley was getting tackled for losses. If anything, you could say that the Ravens looked a little bit better, right? Smoother. But I mean, you had a big dynamic play for 40 yard, a big 40-yard pass from Lamar Jackson on like the opening drive. It was the first or second drive. But then they held them to a field goal. Like they were able to contain any of the big positive moments for the Ravens. Where on the flip side, the Eagles were able to build off of their big moments and feed off it and magnify it. And you could see the Ravens, you could see Flowers, you could see them getting frustrated, angry, upset, disjointed. On the flip side, What do you see the Eagles doing? The broadcast showed us, you saw the defense. You saw the core defensive players all on the sidelines talking to each other, talking about the game, looking on the tablet. They are so connected. That cannot be understated. That was my favorite part of the game when they showed us that. I forget exactly who it was. It was Blankenship. It was a couple other guys, and you could see them. They are connected. They are talking. They are communicating. And what did we see them do defensively? They were connected. They were communicating. They were together. What they were doing on the sideline, they were doing on the field. That's the difference right there. It's always easy to kind of point out very specific plays. A big touchdown run, a big throw, right? A dropped pass, a missed field goal. I always try to look beyond just the obvious. You can see the obvious. Sometimes I want to point out the obvious because you just got to say it out loud. And sometimes the obvious can't be understated, right? When Saquon Barkley does rip off a 60-yard touchdown run or something, it's like, that's bonkers. You got to point that out. But in a game like this, to me, you got to look at some of the other understated stuff. The Ravens are a great team. They're a top team in the NFL. And I said going into this game, I was thinking to myself, okay, what will an outcome mean in this game? If the Ravens roll the Eagles, what does it mean? If the Eagles roll the Ravens, what does it mean? And the conclusion that I reached was this. I said, it would make sense for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Eagles convincingly, because that is what they do to NFC teams. That is what Lamar Jackson does. Derrick Henry. This is a tough game for the Eagles on the road. And I thought to myself, people would use that as a way to say that the Eagles aren't that good. And I was like, I wouldn't believe that. And I would explain it away. And, people would probably say I'm being biased or this or that. And then I thought to myself, well, what happens if the Eagles win? Because the Ravens have been inconsistent. They've lost to the Raiders, the Browns, right? They've had some bizarre losses. And so I came into this game and said, if the Eagles win, the way how this is a big win and a convincing win is if the Ravens play Ravens football but still lose. You don't watch that game and say, what were the Ravens doing? Why did Derrick Henry only have 4 carries for that game? Right? Like one of those weird game plans where I've ripped the Ravens and I'm like, what are you doing? And that's not what we saw. We saw the Eagles fundamentally outplay the Ravens, despite what some of the box score shows you. We saw the Eagles more prepared for the moment. The Eagles looked like they are ready to win. The Ravens look like they're just trying to survive. That's the difference. That is honestly, that is a huge difference. Kellen Moore and that offense had a game plan. They adapted that game plan and they knew what they needed to do. And everybody bought in. Everybody. Vic Fangio and that defense had a game plan. They knew what they needed to do. That is a high IQ team right now. They are just ready for the moment. They feel it. They want it. They're a top team in the NFL for good reason. For good reason. And again, it can't be understated. No matter how we want to slice it. The fact that, again, it was like an hour and 15 minutes between them not getting a first down. We've seen plenty of football teams, even the Eagles themselves. We've seen teams crumble under those type of circumstances. The defense held their own. They were able to contain and keep this game within reason. And when the offense was able to get going, they systematically, the one Dallas Goedert touchdown drive, I think it was Dallas Goedert, just took them apart. And then the same thing when you had the Saquon touchdown run, the 25-yard touchdown run, which then put it up to 21-12. You have that third, which I talked about earlier in the segment, where you had that third down conversion. It was like 3rd and 8 or something to Dallas Goedert, which was a beautiful throw, a big-time throw. Then you have Jalen Hurts running up and getting that first down, a big conversion, needed conversion, which then set up the 25-yard, because then you had where it was kind of, it was a prototypical situation. And I think even Romo pointed this out, where it was like, going to hand it off to Saquon or keep. And that's all set up because of the threat of Jalen Hurts being able to keep it and run, as he had already just showed. Romo did a great job of highlighting all of that, of being like, when am I going to keep it myself versus hand it off? He did a beautiful job of saying, okay, it didn't work this one time, or Jalen made the wrong decision that time, but you're going to learn, you're going to see. And that's what they did. And that's the beauty of Jalen Hurts, of Saquon, of AJ, of Kellen Moore. Honestly, more than anything, of understanding all of this. That's the difference. What lessons did the Baltimore Ravens learn throughout that game? None. So this was honestly a really great game, offensively and defensively. I mean, I wrote down the stats. I'm so happy I did this, because this was before they got some garbage time minutes. But until the final minute of the game, Lamar Jackson was 19 for 30, 206 yards, 6.9 yards per attempt, 3 sacks for 31 yards, a 94.6 passer rating, and 1 touchdown. I mean, the score was 24-12. Realistically, let's be honest here. That last minute, obviously, everybody was checked out and they knew the game was over. So this is a big-time win, big-time game. And the outcome justified that. Because there was absolutely a situation where the Eagles beat the Ravens, and you're like, yeah, the Ravens really didn't play that well. They're maybe not as good as we think they are. They're inconsistent. They're this, they're that. You can't explain away this win. This was a big win against a quarterback who absolutely dominates the NFC. Dominates. And the Eagles made the Ravens offense look like just a regular old team. They did. And it was very impressive. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles, the win? Nick Sirianni, the leader of that team? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.